Breakfast hour is well underway at the Church Street Grill in Nash County. There, behind the counter, Casey Davis proudly sports a red, white, and blue hat with Trump written across the front.
First time ever interested in voting. I never really cared before, about politics or anything.
Davis voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and plans to again in 2020. It's voters like him who helped put Nash County in the red column in 2016. Just 4 years after the county backed President Barack Obama. Across North Carolina, about a dozen counties have flipped back and forth between red and blue, or vice versa, in recent presidential election cycles. We wanted to find out why, and so we hit the road talking to voters and local party officials about what they plan to do to make sure their candidate comes out on top. Nash County's Republican Party leader wants to build on Trump's 2016 success, saying they plan to start organizing volunteers this November, a year ahead of Election Day.
We are by far way in advance of where we were in 2015, preparing for the 2016 campaign.
Nash County is one of a handful of counties across the state, most of them more rural, that turned red in 2016. In some of those flip counties, like Bladen and Richmond, the Republican presidential ticket got 5% more of the vote in 2016 compared with 2012. In Robeson County, Trump's GOP ticket picked up 10 percentage points over 2012. The Republican chair there says the county has struggled economically, meaning Trump's tough talk on trade likely struck a chord.
These are farmers and businessmen in the community. They're not looking for a Democrat or Republican or a conservative or liberal. They're looking for someone who can solve their problems.
In Bladen County, voters we spoke with made it clear Trump's message resonated.
Sometimes he says too much, but I do the same thing, but he says what the American people are thinking.
Across the aisle, Democrats have their work cut out for them. In Caswell County, which turned red in 2012 and stayed in the Republican column in 2016, the Democratic chairwoman says they plan to put together philosophical radio ads aimed at making voters in the area think.
Trump, in every way, has failed the American people, not just people of Caswell. Okay, he's failed us environmentally, he's failing us economically, he's failing us educationally.
Over in Nash County, Democrats say engagement is key.
We're working at the grassroots, so we are registering people to vote. We're putting tremendous and specific emphasis on the younger voters, 40 and under.
Open up the door to your arm cage. To find the one Tar Heel State county that moved from the red to the blue column in 2016, you have to look northwest to Watauga, home to Appalachian State University. It went Democratic in 2008 during Obama's first election before turning red in 2012. Then Hillary Clinton won there in 2016.
The county is predominantly Republican, very much so. The university and Boone is not. We describe it as our donut.
Nathan Miller volunteers with the county GOP. He says because of the influx of students, it could be difficult to turn the county red once again.
We have to work campus. The problem with campus for us is the ideals that we sell. They don't acknowledge those ideals until they go out and get a job. And they see what the government's going to take up from their paycheck.
So, could any of these counties flip again? Perhaps. Any one of them could be make or break for the candidate hoping to carry North Carolina next November. Traveling across the Tar Heel State, Kevin Fry, Spectrum News. Agriculture is the heartbeat of the North Carolina economy, but for farmers here on the ground, fights both in Washington and overseas are causing a whole lot of heartburn.
The farm started in 1825.
Farming is a family tradition for Bert Pitt. He's the 6th generation to live on this plot of land in Edgecombe County.
I feel a big responsibility to carry it on. There's a lot on my shoulders.
Farming is a high-risk occupation. Crops can easily fall victim to the weather and other factors. The ongoing international trade fight is only adding to that uncertainty, causing the price of crops like cotton to drop.
We're making a lot less money. It makes it harder to keep the farm sustainable, to pay bankers, to pay fertilizer.
Across the state, this is a familiar story. Small family farms and larger operations alike feeling the pinch as tensions continue between the White House and China. Both sides have ratcheted up tariffs, putting crop prices in flux. David Grant lives on his farm in Northampton County. He's approaching retirement age and says that while he can hold on for now, if prices remain low for the next year or so, it may be time to call it quits.
The difference between last year's crop and this year's crop, just in price, is right now sitting at about $150,000 less for cotton.
Even so, Grant and other farmers argue the president was right to take action. The status quo, they say, was not working.
Somebody really needed to do something about China's abuse of our trading privileges with her. Most of us feel like we've been subsidizing their 9 and 10 and 12% growth for the last 15 years.
The financial strain comes as the 2020 presidential election nears. Amid the trade fight, a recent survey by Farm Futures shows about 2/3 of farmers nationwide say they'd back President Donald Trump if the election were held today. Some farmers we spoke with remain supportive.
He started a fight that he needs to finish. So I'll support him with that.
Jeff Tyson grows a variety of crops in Nash County, including tobacco. The fight with China has essentially eliminated a key tobacco market. He says he voted for Trump in 2016 and intends to do so again in 2020.
How optimistic are you that this will get resolved, that there will be some resolution to this trade fight?
I don't know. I think a lot of that depends on what happens in Washington once an agreement is met. I have concerns that we will go through this trade negotiation and finally put a package together, and then the power struggles in Congress will emerge.
But what if the trade fight continues for a few more years? Could that change the political equation? Pitt says maybe for some, though so far he is standing with the president.
It could change the way that farmers feel about the administration.
Grant, meanwhile, says he may not vote for Trump again, citing the trade fight and the president's demeanor. But he says he has some concerns about the Democratic candidates as well.
Probably going to end up being another extremely hard decision to make.
In eastern North Carolina, Kevin Fry, Spectrum News.
Do you have a Democrat that you'd like to see win?
Want to know what voters think?
Do you support the president? Do you like any of the Democrats?
You have to start asking. And so, my photographer Sean Klein and I did just that, hitting the road across the Tar Heel state. We asked people who they'd like to see as the Democratic nominee in 2020. While many had not yet decided, one name popped up more often than others.
I hope Biden gets the nomination.
Kind of partial to Biden still at this point.
I think Biden is a possibility.
Those potential voters are not alone. A Civitas Institute poll conducted at the beginning of August shows the former VP leading the pack among likely Democratic primary voters in North Carolina with 36% of the vote. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren rounded out the top three. Some county Democratic Party chairs we spoke with also voiced support for Joe Biden, arguing he is more electable in a swing state like North Carolina than his more progressive rivals.
I think Biden will still resonate with Caswell because this is a very conservative black and white community.
The Biden campaign itself has made electability part of its message.
We have to beat Donald Trump, and all the polls agree Joe Biden is the strongest Democrat to do the job.
Across the aisle, some Republican leaders seem to buy that argument, labeling Biden potentially the biggest threat to President Donald Trump.
If Joe Biden were to make it through the primary, and if he can stay on his own message, then I can see where he could be a challenge.
Some Republican Party leaders we spoke with relished the idea of Trump facing a more progressive candidate. Others panned the whole Democratic field.
Given the far left extremism that they all seem to support, there's not a single one of those candidates that I feel presents a significant challenge to Donald Trump.
Of course, it goes without saying that we are really early on in this process. Biden benefits from name recognition that other candidates don't necessarily have yet. It's also worth noting that as we traveled across North Carolina, voters brought up other names as well, including the women in this race, like Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren.
Kamala Harris. Not because she's a female, but it's time for a change.
On campus at Appalachian State, several students gave Bernie Sanders a shout-out.
I'm ready to see something more progressive in this nation than the average Joe.
One of the big questions Democrats are facing this election cycle is what happens if the nominee ends up coming from the moderate wing of the party, like Biden. Would progressive voters still back him come the general election? At least this student says yes.
Why would you still go vote for him?
Because I think it's time for Trump to be out of office. I think he's polarizing the nation.
Alternatively, what if the Democrats end up with a more progressive nominee? Could that turn off moderate voters? In a purple state like North Carolina, where every vote counts, these are not insignificant questions.
Regardless, really, of who's on the ticket, I think people understand fundamentally what this election is about.
Traveling across the state for Capital Tonight, I'm Kevin Fry. Caffeine is flowing at the Common Grounds coffee shop in downtown Apex. Over in the corner, Leah Vinchevsky is just settling in. She's new to North Carolina.
We love the area, we love the community. It's been a great experience getting integrated here.
Before moving to town, she and her husband spent years abroad in Germany.
We're settling here, we bought a house, this is our permanent home.
North Carolina's population is booming, spurred in large part by folks moving in. The state has a net gain of about 85,000 residents from migration annually.
There's over 350,000 new residents in North Carolina in a single year. So just to get to 85,000 net gain, you have a lot of people move in, a lot of people move out.
Rebecca Tippett is the director of Carolina Demography at UNC Chapel Hill. She says nationwide between July 2017 and July 2018, North Carolina ranked 4th in terms of net immigration, the overall population shift when you account for people moving in and out. So where are these people coming from?
We tend to gain from the Northeast as well as from the Midwest. So those places tend to send more people here than we tend to send there. There's a lot of churn within the Atlantic coast. So, you know, we have a lot of back and forth between our nearest neighbors. That's what's to be expected.
2017 data from the U.S. Census Bureau shows the Tar Heel State saw the most net in-migration from states like California, New Jersey, and New York, with a net gain of more than 10,000 people from each. So where are these people going? Tippett says many are relocating to major population centers like Wake and Mecklenburg counties, plus their suburbs. Brunswick County also ranks near the top, especially with retirees. North Carolina has long been considered a purple state politically, but could new residents change that? Appalachian State University Associate Professor Carl Campbell says the key to answering that question may rest with the political parties.
North Carolina's population is changing, and that's going to change politics. But what the parties do in responding to that is really going to be more determinative.
Beyond migration, Tippett says another thing to watch is the state's Latino population. She says many children of the state's first-generation immigrants are starting to turn 18, which could impact electoral politics. That is, if they choose to head to the polls. Tippett says Latino citizens tend to register at a lower rate than their white and black counterparts.
This will be the first time that we have a large pool of potential Latino voters in our electorate. How the Latino electorate is going to vote in North Carolina and the rest of the South, I think is an open question.
Back in Apex, Leah isn't ready to weigh in on 2020 quite yet. After spending years overseas, she and her husband are just getting to know the field of candidates. She did have this to say when asked about the president.
I don't think that I align with most of the policies and things that are happening. There's a lot of things that I care about that I don't see happening, so I think that, I'm definitely looking to see a different candidate.
In Apex, Kevin Fry, Spectrum News.
You got a grilled cheese on white and tossed salad.
Nestled in a corner in the Oasis sandwich shop in Monroe, we found a customer doing her best to escape the latest headlines.
You listen to the news and you think, what must other countries think of the United States?
Vivian Roberts voted for President Donald Trump in 2016, just 8 years after backing Barack Obama. Going into 2020, she's not sure she'll pick Trump again.
I think he's doing more harm for our country and dividing people with his comments and his attitude. It's so undiplomatic to me.
Monroe is the seat of Union County, a longtime Republican stronghold right outside of Charlotte. The recent special congressional election in the 9th District shows Union County remains firmly in the GOP column, with Dan Bishop earning roughly 60% of the vote there. And several voters in the county recently told us they continue to back the president.
I support everything Trump has done, from integration to supporting Christian values.
Nationally, the suburbs played a crucial role in the 2018 midterm elections, with swings there helping Democrats win control of the U.S. House. Heading into 2020, small shifts in those communities could help determine whether or not North Carolina ends up in the red or blue column on election night. Carl Campbell, an associate professor of history at Appalachian State University, says no doubt the suburbs are important.
The cities are voting Democratic increasingly. The rural areas voting Republican. So it's going to be the suburbs and the exurbs that are kind of, I think, determinative.
Only complicating matters, many people are moving into North Carolina, with the state recently seeing a net gain of about 85,000 residents per year from migration. Many are relocating to urban centers like Wake County, plus its suburbs. In Apex, just outside Raleigh, Ashesh Chatterjee says he's noticed a change politically.
You're seeing this town, which was a traditionally red town, move toward moving in a more blue direction as more people come in.
Which one do you think, brother?
Over in Wendell, another Raleigh suburb, we found David Williams and George Pope at their beer club. They're friends, but do not see eye to eye when it comes to the president. One thing they do agree on, his tone could be better.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
He acts like an immature 10-year-old, like a whiny little baby.
Behavior aside, Pope says he remains open to voting for Trump again in 2020, saying he supports some of his policy goals, like bringing industry jobs back to the U.S.
I think there's still a lot of Trump supporters out there that believe in the ideology of purpose and goals and situations within the country that need to be taken care of.
Traveling across North Carolina, Kevin Fry, Spectrum News.